Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Films and Stuff podcast. I'm Ethan, joined as always by most valuable Pete. Hey, Pete, what's up?
Not much, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. So, the most recent James Gunn directed, produced, inspired summer blockbuster film, the rebooted Superman.
Rebooted. This is the new direction that Warner Brothers is going in, and let's see where it ends up.
So, first things first, what was your level of enthusiasm going into this?
So I was cautiously optimistic, as I am with all movies, to be fair. I really like Superman. And in general, I think where DC excels over Marvel is in the individual superhero stories. But I think where Marvel excels over DC is whenever you have any kind of group or team up effort. So, for example,
That's a good comment.
I like Superman individually. I like Batman individually, but I much prefer the Avengers or the X-Men to the Justice League.
Actually, that's a very, very good comment. So you're cautiously optimistic going into this. I
Yeah.
like how you hedge your bets. I would say that up until about a week ago, I wouldn't say it's not on my radar because obviously it's part of our predictees. It wasn't like on my calendar that like, oh boy, it's coming out. I've got to see it. And then I can't remember if it was during F1 or Jurassic World. The preview was for Superman. And it's, I try to avoid the trailers because I think they're misleading and I like to go into movies fresh. But I saw the trailer as part of one of those two films. And I have to say, I got really excited. It looked very good. The music really got me like in the right mood. And I think my comment to you was, it looks good, but it seems like there's a lot of bad guys.
Yeah. And I think that's why I was also worried.
Yeah.
One, I was worried that James Gunn was going to be a bit too James Gunn, which is to say that he's an excellent writer. He goes after emotion. He gives you a different nuanced take on superheroes, but he also has a tendency to be, and this is in no way is this a bad thing, but he tends to side on the air of weird. He likes things that are a little out there. He's a little bit unexpected. And sometimes that's not necessarily what you want, especially at this earliest stage.
Yeah. He's a little bit edgy, and we're not sure if Superman should be edgy.
So yeah, that was my first concern. And the second concern was, and this is the same problem that Zack Snyder had, which I think we see it again with James Gunn, is too much too fast.
Yeah.
My feeling was, I want to see a Superman story. Let's focus on Superman. We don't need 12 other guys in here because all audience members are sophisticated, even the ones who are not superhero fans, understand that when you're making a superhero movie, you're kind of involved in a world and in a universe. And 100% of the credit goes to Kevin Feige at Marvel for this. He kind of created that concept of a shared universe, or if not created, he certainly perfected the idea of a shared universe. So everyone expects that. The problem is you don't want to cram too much. And like Zack Snyder did in those first few movies, and James Gunn did the same thing. He's done too much.
Give me your one-line summary of how you felt walking out of this movie.
Excited for the next step, but even more cautiously optimistic than before.
I would say my take when I left was loved the Superman character, a lot of unnecessary, confusing other stuff that had the Superman character not been very lovable, I would have really not enjoyed this movie.
Right.
So again, we've already disclaimed there are going to be spoilers. Should we do a quick summary of the plot of this movie?
The premise slash plot of the film is that for once, we're not getting an origin story.
Yes.
Superman exists in the world.
Yes.
He's been a public figure for 3 years at this point.
So there are metahumans widely acknowledged and accepted in the world and society.
Correct.
Superman is one of those.
Yes. And going one step forward, he's now in that stage where not only has he been public for 3 years, but his story is well known that he's an alien from Krypton.
That's right.
He's not a guy who got superpowers on Earth.
Yeah.
And in fact, he's already been dating Lois Lane for 3 months. And that's also kind of not maybe widely known, but known in select circles that Lois Lane is dating Superman.
So that's the background to this. I liked that beginning, that this wasn't an origin story. I think it was good that it left a lot to the imagination, which I think is good storytelling and good movie writing, that you kind of gloss over some of those points. You leave a little bit of that to the audience's imagination, and you kind of start from the present time. And I thought it was kind of a very modern take in terms of where we are with Superman.
Also because, I mean, everyone knows the Superman story.
We didn't need Smallville all over
We
again.
didn't need Smallville. We didn't need to see Krypton. We didn't need to see him crash on the planet as a baby. None of that. The few throwbacks that they made to it, I think they did it quite smartly. Like when you see the holograph of his parents. You know, it's the same thing I've said about Spider-Man. The point is, we don't need to see Spider-Man every time they reboot it get bit by a spider.
By the spider.
Everyone knows that he gets his powers from a spider.
That's right.
Let's move on.
So we find Superman, I think, in a very bloodied or beaten Superman at the outset of this movie, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, very much a shock and probably something that we haven't seen since Superman versus Batman.
Maybe.
Or going back even further, maybe like one of the original Christopher Reeves movies, right? Where he gave up his power and then he was kind of like beat up at the bar.
Yeah.
We're introduced to Superman in a very vulnerable place. What was like your knee-jerk reaction at that point? I kind of suspended my opinion because I thought it was compelling enough that I just kind of wanted to see where it went. The one thing that struck me, and maybe this is a little bit shallow or maybe not, I was kind of surprised by his costume, especially compared to, you know, what we've seen in the Man of Steel costume, and especially how much attention Marvel pays to their costumes. I thought it was a very basic,
old-fashioned.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was going to, but just kind of like the red underwear and the little collar and what looked like more rain boots than anything. I was surprised that it wasn't like oh, that's a really tight costume. Not tight fitting, but like cool costume. I was kind of like, that seems like there was budget cuts on the costume.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that struck me. And I think, you know, that's kind of all I need to say about that. But then it was an interesting take because we're introduced to the dog for the first time.
Yeah.
Have we seen Crypto in anything else?
Other than the comics and the cartoons? No.
What did you like about that?
I loved it. I thought that was great. It was actually one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Okay. I mean, we're both dog lovers, so I mean, that makes sense. I was not sure about it overall, but I think Crypto became a very endearing character. And then kind of like we see what's happened. Superman gets fixed up. We see, you know, how he heals from the sun. And then he jumps kind of like back into the fray. What do you think about kind of like the early, I don't even know it's like the first act, but the early part of the movie really shows Superman losing.
I actually thought it was good because what it does is it tells you a lot about Superman's power set without having to specifically be told this is what you need and this is why you need it. I like that we get to see his Fortress of Solitude. I love that we got to see the Superman robots. I love that little healing room factor where they kind of have him heal with the magnifying glass from the
Yep.
sun and the entire base rotates for that. I thought that
Hmm.
was great. I
Hmm.
actually liked that a lot. My worry about that being Zack Snyder-ish because we see him bloodied went away almost immediately.
Okay. But then he jumps back into the fray and back into the fight all over again.
Yeah.
But like he's losing. I wouldn't even say that's a draw. He kind of loses that initial fight. I was just kind of confused in terms of where this was going, but I didn't really have any negative feelings.
I didn't have any negative feelings. He was losing. The reason he lost was not necessarily because he's a bad fighter. What was
Hmm.
also, I think it was more to indicate and to show to everyone. So the reason he loses is because Lex Luthor is behind that first fight scene,
Yeah.
and Lex knows Superman so well. And I think this was just a way to highlight Lex Luthor's intellect, where he's
Yeah.
directing the fight, where he's like, all right, you have to do this. You have to do this formation. You have to do this fight. You have to do this punch. You have to do this maneuver. And when you do all of these things, you can beat Superman because I've spent the last 3 years meticulously researching Superman. So I think it was less a
Yeah.
showcase of Superman's weakness and more a showcase of Lex Luthor's strengths.
Yeah. I didn't mind. mm, I don't want to dwell on it because I don't really think it was a big negative, but I didn't really love the idea of Lex Luthor kind of like singing out these commands slash coordinates. And it was like, oh, I'm so much faster thinking that I can make my own judgment and then I can say this coordinate out loud and then someone's going to follow my instructions. And this is like, anyway, I don't want to dwell on it too much because I don't think it was like a big part of the movie, but I didn't love it, but I moved on from it.
Right. So anyway, Superman loses, and then we get into what I think is the
I think it's the narrative in terms of then we're actually introduced to who Superman is like as a character. You
yeah,
know, not as a superhero, but like his internal character and personality and motivations.
his motivations, right? Like why
Yeah.
he does the things that he does, and then we learn that he quote unquote stopped a war before it started in a
Hmm.
foreign nation.
Yeah.
And that ruffled a lot of feathers because he did it under his own accord. And to
Yeah.
be fair, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't single-handedly make that kind of decision. And that raises all sorts of ethical and, more importantly, political issues, right? Like, it raises the issue of we now have metahumans who are making their own geopolitical decisions without the
Yeah.
government, without anyone telling them to do that.
I think it was a very good setup for those, like you said, kind of the, I don't know if I'd call that a moral question, but those hard questions. And frankly, I think it was a situation where both sides are right,
Yes.
or if you want to be the opposite, neither side is wrong, which is
Yeah.
when you say it like this, like, so an alien is making unilateral political decisions. When you say it like that sounds bad. When you say, hey, the guy is doing what is right to prevent death and destruction, that also sounds right. And to be honest, it's kind of no different than what we traditionally see a superhero do on kind of like the streets of Gotham or Metropolis on a daily basis is they see a crime in progress. They don't have a judge and jury and ask for DNA evidence and all these other things. They say, stop the crime. I'm going to stop it for you,
So
kind of
this is
thing,
the
you know?
difference for me between Superman and Batman.
Yeah.
Superman stops the crime, but he does it within the framework of the law.
Mm.
Batman stops the crime, but he does it within the framework of his own personal moral compass.
Yeah. He's a
And
vigilante.
so, right. And in that regard, this is a great first step for Superman to kind of showcase how immature he is. Because even though he's been doing this for 3 years, he's still only in this show 30 years old. At that age, when he's only been a superhero for 3 years, this is the time where he starts to learn the nuances, and he should be learning the nuances of his actions, right? And generally speaking, in the comics, in the cartoon series, Superman does abide by the law, whereas maybe this is not his first time doing something like that as a superhero, but this may be his first time where he's gone against what is considered the greater rule of law, right?
Yeah.
On his own. And that's the premise of this movie, because we find out that some people are for him, some people are against him, right? And
Mhm.
there's what I like about this is it's quite modern, right? So there's like
Yeah.
the social media efforts against
Yeah.
him. Everyone's kind of crapping on him online. And then Lex Luthor uncovers, by the way, this is the part I like least about this movie. Lex Luthor breaks into the Fortress of Solitude.
Didn't
No
like that at
problem
all.
there.
I have a problem there.
I didn't have a problem with him getting into the Fortress of Solitude. What I had a problem was with him finding the hologram of his parents, uncovering the rest of that message. So the premise initially was in the transit from Krypton to Earth, his parents left a message, but that message became garbled about 50% of the way through. Lex Luthor is able to get the entire message and he's able to ungarble it and decrypt it. And it basically says go to Earth and become their God King. And, have a harem of people, basically rule over these people. And that was true. I thought that was going to be like a part of this fake media, or like I thought it was going to be an artificial intelligence video that he fake created, but that turned out to be real.
Is there any basis for that in the
Absolutely
comics?
not. So
I,
that was a change
yeah.
they made to the canon, which, by the way, not a fan of and totally unnecessary.
I didn't like I'll tell you what. I'm with you on this. Let's start with a few things to put this plot in a little bit of perspective. I did not like at all the breaking into the Fortress of Solitude. I did not like whatsoever the character, the engineer.
Okay.
Where did this character come from? Is this in the comics?
I don't know.
I still don't understand. It was somehow like a former, I don't think it was a Marine, but it was somehow former military. And then allegedly Lex Luthor somehow like gave it like some super powers or something like that. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, they use nanotechnology to
Yeah.
make her a meta.
So I don't like any of this. I thought that was I thought she was a good villain because she was unlikable. But all this thing about like these saw blades coming out of her hands and having all these like tentacles that could plug into the computer and decode it, I thought that was just like totally nonsense. Just totally nonsense. I don't know how this lady could plug into whatever technology comes from Krypton. I don't know how they could possibly decipher this code. I mean, all of it seemed implausible and ugly to me. I didn't like that at all.
Right.
I didn't like the breaking into the computer. I didn't like that they could hack this message and that all these super robots weren't able to ever fix the message that was lost during translation, but somehow Luthor could, and then people could verify that this was an accurate translation. That just seems totally nonsense to me. I didn't
Right.
like it at all.
Right. I don't want to call it a slap in the face, but it felt like a slap in the face. Like, I get
Yeah.
that you want to change something and I get that you
Yeah.
want to do something different, but this is like a step too far. Like, why?
Yeah.
So you make it Kal-El's parents' mission as the planet is dying to go to Earth to dominate it, to become a god there, and then to have a secret harem. Like, that's the stupidest thing ever.
I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
At all. So I thought that was unnecessary. Anyway, let's talk about a little bit. Let's just fast forward the plot a little bit. What did you think about this ability to kind of like teleport between these universes?
Oh, the pocket dimension. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, yeah. Okay. So let's get back to it. So yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, so the first half of the movie is basically about Superman's image and reputation being tarnished. He
Hmm.
turns himself in, and because he's Superman, they don't really know how to put him in jail
Yeah.
properly. So they give him to Lex Luthor, who stores him in Pocket Dimension. And the Pocket Dimension is basically an alternate, not universe, but let's call it a sub-universe that Lex has created.
It's like between universes. I got it as like it's between
Correct.
universes.
It's the space
Yeah.
between universes
Yeah.
that Lex found when he created this nuclear fusion, whatever, some techno mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
And that allows people to travel through portals, which we learn at that point also is that he's working with that country that was invading the other country.
Yeah.
And the
Barovia.
idea was that they were going to let the other country take over, and he was going to take over half of that country and create his own country there. Fine. To be fair, that's a typical comic book kind of story.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I, I don't have a problem.
I thought the story was okay. I liked the idea of the portals when I just thought it was like you could move between, to simplified it, Los Angeles and New York by just walking through this portal.
Yeah.
I was kind of cool with that. I didn't like the pocket universe, although I could have tolerated it, but then I didn't really like whatever this concept is of like the pocket universe river that is now tearing the world apart, apparently starting in Metropolis. I thought that was not really that exciting, very heavy on the CGI. Didn't hate it, but definitely it was not a high point of the film for me.
I didn't have a problem with it. I thought that was an alternative to, the other big thing
The
that they
alien
always do is
portal.
the alien portal.
And maybe this is where we're going to start to get into our discussion of the bigger picture of this movie. I didn't think we needed another issue. Like, I thought this was a very good movie to say, here is the new Superman. This is what he's all about. This is Lex Luthor, his arch enemy nemesis, and how Luthor is trying to destroy him. I didn't think we kind of needed the idea of, oh, by the way, there's this anti-proton river that's now getting the world to be torn in half. But don't worry, all we need to do is kind of get to a computer and type in a few things and we can kind of.
Close the portal off. And then I think the reason they did that was because they needed two conflicts. And this is the problem I have with James Gunn. The reason they needed two conflicts is because they introduced the quote unquote Justice Gang.
Who is this?
Okay, so the first we have Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner.
Is this a thing?
That's the thing, yeah. So there are three, in terms of the Green Lantern Corps, there have been humans.
I got the idea of the Justice Gang. So basically there's metahumans. I get, Justice Gang I thought was kind of funny and I get it, but where do they fit? Maybe from a comic book perspective like you, for me, these just seemed like made up figures that like they just seemed so farcical. It was as if someone who had no background in superheroes or superhero movies would just make up three characters. This is who my mom would make up.
This is what I meant by James Gunn. The first comment I made about my worry about James Gunn choosing weird characters and adding too many at the same time.
Like I would expect these people to be in Peacemaker. I didn't expect them to be in a proper Superman.
Well, speaking of, the Peacemaker makes a cameo.
We did see the cameo for Peacemaker.
Let's go back. So they introduced the beginnings of what is going to be the Justice League. That was a problem. This is the first movie in the series. And you've already decided that you're going to show the team up movie. And you start off with this fledgling Justice League-esque trio. Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific.
Like, is Hawkgirl a person?
Yeah, all of them are heroes.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, look, this is what I mean. Is too soon for all of this. Like, you should have saved this for the sequel or even the third movie or a standalone Green Lantern movie or a standalone Hawkgirl movie. There's so many different ways you could have introduced this.
Yeah.
I think to introduce them in a Superman movie was unnecessary. Like if they made a cameo, maybe. And that too, a big maybe.
I agree. I could have been on board with the slow introduction, but it seemed like they were already, I mean, they were already a
Established
gang.
superheroes.
They already had like their Hall of Justice, was it? I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Yeah.
Like they were already established. Maybe they follow the canon. They all seemed like just entirely made up to me. The Hawk Girl, this weird Green Lantern, and then Mr. Terrific, which again sounds like a pro wrestler in the 80s. And even though I really like him, the first part of the movie, like he had almost zero personality. Like, is that really what he does? Is he just sits in a chair with these little orbs and types on his tablet? Is that his thing? I just felt like this was the weirdest, least charismatic, likable group to introduce alongside of, and this has been lost in my comments, a supremely likable, well played David Cornsweet as Superman.
So let's put things in perspective. Again, huge spoiler alert. In
Yeah.
a movie about Superman, right?
Yeah.
The first movie of the DC universe,
Yes.
the launch of this
Yes.
new expanded DC Comics universe. You have Superman, duh,
Yes.
Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, Guy Gardner. You have Mr. Terrific, so that's four non-Superman characters, not or non-Superman superheroes
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
Peacemaker, Supergirl, and by my count, you have six superheroes, five of whom are not Superman in the same movie, and that might be seven. I might be miscounting. But what are you doing? This should just have been Superman and at most one more cameo. Maybe two if it was like at the end of the movie.
And apart from that, you've still got all the Daily Planet people.
Of course, but
And apart from that, you need also your bad guy.
and then you have the bad guys. Yeah. So, and then speaking of the bad guys, you have Lex Luthor, Ultraman. Okay, I don't know who the engineer is, but Ultraman, who's, I mean, I don't even want to get started on Ultraman. That is another thing altogether. Maxwell Lord, I mean, all these crazy ass cameos in the first movie. Just focus on the brains versus brawn, which is exactly the comment that Lex Luthor makes in this movie,
Yeah.
then just have it be a brains versus brawn.
I want to get it on the record as uncertain I was about whether or not I would like Superman as the new character, because I previously liked all the other Supermen, right? I thought David Cornsweet was fantastic as Superman, as Clark Kent, and I thought the tone given to his character could not have been better.
Yeah.
And that I thought made this a very, very good movie. Had it not been for that perfectly hitting every note, in my opinion, I really kind of disliked, apart from Luthor, who was good, I kind of disliked all the other stuff. I disliked the engineer. I still can't understand all the other stuff. Like it was just like a fruit salad of different pieces. But apart from Superman, I really didn't find any of it compelling. Like I could not get behind Mr. Terrific, who started very, I mean, again, he's floating in the air, sitting kind of in a chair with his tablet controlling these orbs. And then at some point, once they were kind of in like the portal, he was actually pretty okay. The whole thing was just confusing and a little bit off-putting for me, to be honest.
Sure. Anyone listening by now still thinks that we probably dislike this movie. We're just talking about the elements we specifically disliked. And again, it comes down to James Gunn.
Yeah.
I love James Gunn's writing. I'm a big fan of James Gunn, but I think James Gunn sometimes needs to be held back. I think he takes some of the creative liberties a bit too far. I think you need to stop being, I think there needs to be less of a focus on the ultra niche. And especially for a movie like this, to have a little bit of focus. And the
Yeah.
reason I say that is because this is the first one. If you
Yeah.
want to go niche like he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, you're welcome to. But guess what? Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't the first movie in the MCU. It probably wasn't even the 15th movie in the MCU.
Yeah.
The MCU had time to really build out the universe with
Yeah.
well-known names and characters
Yeah.
before they started digging deep into the well of random superheroes. In this, you're dealing with Superman. Focus on Superman. He's already an A-tier superstar.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. Look, I think we've maybe gone off the rails a little as we tend to.
That's the
The movie
deal.
was it definitely had its flaws, but let's go back to what we liked about this movie. I
Okay.
think Corrin Sweat was fantastic as
Fantastic.
Clark Kent. I thought he was as good, if not better, as Superman.
Yeah.
I think the chemistry between him and Lois Lane wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't horrible.
I have to say, I liked her as Lois Lane. I mean, we've seen a lot of Lois Lanes over the years, right? I thought that she was a very good take that
Yeah.
without being an over the top,
Yeah,
like she
not
was very,
aggressive, but at the same
yes,
time firm, which is exactly
yes,
what you want for Lois Lane.
yeah. And I thought that, I mean, I just felt like overall she struck the right balance. And it's so refreshing to see. I shouldn't have to say this. It's so refreshing to see a female character who's not overwritten or underwritten.
Yeah.
She was not this vulgar chain smoking f-bombing,
30s era
exactly.
reporter.
Yeah, she wasn't that, she wasn't also this kind of like impish Amy Adams. Oh, you're so handsome and I'm just a damsel in distress. Like I felt like she really played that character well, not too high, not too low. I thought she hit all the right points, even the way that she dressed, not overly sexy, not overly like,
Mannish.
yeah. Like we don't see her like, oh, I forgot to shower. I'm so dedicated to journalism, or I'm wearing the same shirt, 5 days in a row because I'm just so dedicated to journalism. Like she had the right balance, I thought, between like
She
feminism
was a
and
well-functioning adult,
absolutely.
which
I
is
thought that
what
was
so many of these movies
yes.
miswrite their
Yep.
women and
Yes.
even men characters, but
Yep.
specifically women characters.
Yep.
She was just a normal, high-functioning adult,
Yeah,
and
she was
that
just a
was
very good
refreshing.
reporter. I thought Cornswat was great. I thought Lois Lane was great. I have to say, I really like Luther. I thought the Luther character was great. Nicholas Holt.
I thought he was fine.
Jimmy was great. I thought he played that character well.
Yeah.
Like not too weird. But I mean, we've seen that. I mean, for example, in F1, where we saw whatever the driver's kind of
Agent.
social media manager
Yeah.
was, right? Didn't add anything.
Yeah.
Here, I thought that Jimmy hit the right points. We didn't see much of Perry White, Wendell Pierce.
Yeah.
And I liked all the folks from kind of like the Pentagon, like the US military
Yeah.
folks. I
Yeah.
thought that they had the right, also not overly aggressive, not too wonkish. I thought they were kind of in the right place. So my real problem was that they introduced all these like bonkers characters that I just had no idea who they were. And it's okay that I don't know who they were. I'm not supposed to be the encyclopedia on DC as you are, but at least make me feel like these things weren't just like fabricated overnight. I mean, it wasn't really clear what their powers were, how they got those powers, how they got together as a group. Like, I just thought it was, to be honest, it was, if you would have told me it was a parody, I would have believed it with those
Right.
characters.
Right.
If you would have said these are characters from Gen V, someone called Mr. Terrific, someone called Hawk Girl, this other Green Lantern with a horrible haircut, I would have said, yeah, that actually looks like Gen V. I believe it. It looks like weird characters from Peacemaker. I totally believe it. I was really shocked to see them in this high budgeted Superman. And again, as you've said, first installment of what should be many, many, many more to come. Too much too soon.
Yeah. That's my number one critique of this movie. Now,
Yeah.
look, again, Anyone listening probably thinks that we didn't like this movie. I critique it to this level because I really did like this movie. And overall, as I walked out, I was excited and I was quite happy with it. And I was quite pleased with it because it wasn't a fumble. But that's why I'm concerned about where the next few steps go, because those are now going to be crucial.
Maybe I'll say the same thing that you said, but in my own words. Loved the Superman character. If there was a sequel tomorrow, I would go immediately. Very unenthusiastic for the DCU based on everyone other than Superman, Lois Lane, Jimmy, and Nicholas Holt's character. Like if there's a movie called Justice Gang that came out tomorrow, I wouldn't go. I'll do it one step further. If there's a back-to-back showing and it's like Superman, and then they said, oh, surprise, you can stay another 2 hours for free. You get a free popcorn and you get to watch now something called Justice Gang. I would not have stayed for it. You seem to be taking that in stride, but I feel like that's a very damning statement that if James Gunn heard it, he'd be like, what? That's not at all what I expected. I expected to introduce the Justice Gang and people would have loved them and cheered them. And if I would have given them a free 2 hours immediately after, that they would have been like, oh my God, this is a dream come true. I think he'd be shocked that I'd walk out.
That's the gamble that James Gunn took by introducing them so early.
That's the gamble that Warner, Discovery, what have you, took, where they say, you're not just a co-CEO, you're also the director of this film.
And the creative head, yeah.
Which means there's effectively no one who can say to him, hey, have a think about whether it's too much too soon. Do we need all of this? There's no one to push back. In fact, he's powerful. Everyone is probably trying to get in the movie, and it's hard for him to say no, right?
Maybe. I mean, look, time is going to tell now what happens going forward. Again, this is what I meant. Ultimately, despite my few reservations, which are all James Gunn-esque, at the end of the day, like a lot of people are going to compare this to Zack Snyder's universe. Hilariously enough, except for tone, the problems that plague the Zack Snyder universe are the same problems that James Gunn is facing. They did the same thing with the Zack Snyder universe. Is they introduced too many characters too fast and not in a coordinated way. I'm not saying that's the same problem that James Gunn is going to have going forward, but it certainly was in this movie.
You know, the one thing we've seen from the Marvel universe is that you see kind of like the bigger problem on the horizon, right? Thanos or whatever it is, right? What's the next problem for Superman? Like if there's a Superman sequel, okay, apparently Nicholas Hoult is out, right? Like it's not like he contacted another alien from a different dimension. Yeah. It's not like he teamed up with another bad guy. Like that, I think maybe that's a problem, that there's all this stuff introduced. Okay, we have different creative opinions, but they didn't actually introduce like an ongoing problem. You know, there was, it would have been different if they would have opened the portal and something bad would have come out of the portal. What exactly is the next problem Superman's going to face?
If I were James Gunn, I would say, okay, I've introduced Lex Luthor.
You know,
whether you like him or you hate him, he exists in the universe now. And at least after this first movie, he's sidelined.
Yep.
Now, in the Superman Rogues Gallery, the biggest threat is Darkseid. But Darkseid is a Justice League level bad guy. He is a huge villain, and he's someone that I would want the Justice League for. It's not a one-on-one battle. It's really a 1-on-6 battle. That's how powerful Darkseid is. But there is Brainiac. There is Bizarro. There is still General Zod. There is still Metallo.
Fine, but isn't Ultraman, tell me if I got this right though, Ultraman was a clone of Superman?
In this movie, yes.
So Ultraman's out because he got sucked in the black hole, right?
Correct. So I'm not talking about Ultraman. So, but there's still 5, 6, 7 different guys that they can rely on to be the villain of the next movie.
I get that. I mean, you never run out of villains, but then to be honest, you're going back to like Batman of the 90s, where it's Michael Keaton, bad guy, the Joker, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze for whoever played that Batman, right?
Yeah.
Then there's a new Batman, Val Kilmer, and a new bad guy. And then there's not any sequence. It's just another movie, another
No,
movie,
no,
another
I
movie.
agree.
They should have opened the door. If you're going to open the door to all this stuff that I felt was unnecessary, why wouldn't you open the door to like the bigger bad?
On that, I disagree. I
Hmm.
think you save Darkseid as a reveal for the third movie or the fourth movie or another movie where he's like pulling the strings similar to Thanos. I don't think you introduce him now. I think you kind of sprinkle him and then introduce him as the big bad for the team up movie.
Okay. What did you think of his Earth mom and dad, Ma and Pa?
I didn't like them. I wasn't a fan. And forgive me if this is a like a really negative thing to say, but they sounded and they looked like
Yeah,
hillbillies.
it was kind of racist. Maybe not racist, but it was kind of like somethingist, you know?
Yeah, it just felt wrong.
Especially because criticize Zack Snyder all you want. He had an amazing mother and father, right? Diane Lane and
Michael Keaton.
Michael, no, not Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton was his dad?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. It's true.
The guy from Yellowstone.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, not Michael Keaton. Oh, that's my bad. I don't know why I confused them. But yes, the guy from Yellowstone. And I don't know why I called him Michael Keaton. Oh my God. That's
I'm like,
hilarious.
I'm like, dude, that's definitely not Michael Keaton.
No, I'm so
Uh,
sorry. Kevin.
I got you. Okay, so I thought that mother and father, like from the Snyder universe, were they hit the right tones, yeah. And this was, you're right, very hillbilly-ish, like Ma and Pa, and I thought they didn't have to diminish them so much. Like they could have made them kind of like simple and basic and farmers and stuff, but they didn't have to like make them
Like
just
that
like,
scene, the very first scene where he's calling them
yeah,
on the phone and
yeah,
they're like bumbling over each other on speakerphone. I thought that was really dumb.
yeah, unnecessary. Okay, I'm very, very happy with that. And I think that's reflected in our ratings. Drum roll. Pete,
Must see in cinema.
I gave it the same must see in cinema, but let me clarify that. I think you must see it because I think it's a big movie. I think it absolutely is worth the value. I think you'll enjoy the Superman character. I don't think that, to be honest, if you don't see it, you are missing out on a movie that has to be seen in IMAX or big screen or something. So, for example, F1, which I don't necessarily think is a better movie than Superman, F1 has to be seen in a cinema. Like if you wait for this and you watch it on a little airplane screen or at home or on your laptop, you will absolutely not get the best parts of F1. The best part of F1 is not the story, it's the scenes. Superman, while filmed very, very well, I think you could get the best parts of this movie, which are the character and his, I want to say his moral compass, but that's not really the right word. You can get that on a smaller screen. It's not all about the surround sound, the blasts, the camera work. But I do think that because it is a Superman, because it's a big thing for James Gunn, because it's a big thing for DC Universe, definitely you should go see it. And that's why I do give it also a must see in cinemas as well.
Okay. I think this is a must see in cinemas, period. I think the fight sequences were pretty good. I thought the humor was landed relatively well. I think the
Yeah,
effects were very good. The concerns I had and the criticisms I had little to do with the movie and more to do with James Gunn.
let's line these up. Superman, DCU. The last two Marvel movies we saw were Captain America
Yeah,
and what?
Thunderbolts.
Let's rank those. You've got to see another one tomorrow. Which of those three would you see?
Oh, Superman. I'd see Superman over anything else right now.
I would see Thunderbolts first, just because of David Harbour.
Hmm.
I would see Superman second, and absolutely last would be Captain America.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's about right.
Yeah, I think that's probably my ranking. You made the comment earlier, and I think it's very much true. The groups that Marvel does are way more cohesive than the groups in DC. And I think actually Thunderbolts is a very good example of that, where, to be honest, Thunderbolts were a whole bunch of people kind of thrown together, right?
Yeah.
And they pulled it off very, very well. Whereas we've gotten a bunch of poo-poo platter, I think, for Superman. Apart from Superman himself, not a fan of the Justice Gang. I do
Yeah.
like the name, and I thought it was funny that they said at the end, "Oh, that's a cool name," and then Green Lantern, warmed to him. But I thought all those characters are just super weird, super weird.
Right.
All right, Pete, I expect, and I hope it's not just wishful thinking, we are going to have a lot of comments. We're going to have a lot of likes, questions, comments, feedback, agreements, disagreements. Can you remind everyone of where they can contact us to direct all of their energy towards this film?
Absolutely. You can DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. But the best way to get in touch with us, leave a comment below, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell.
That is absolutely right. Pete, thank you for the semi-emergency episode of the review of Zack Snyder's James Gunn. James Gunn's Superman. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time, next episode, Films and Stuff Podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.